The St. Louis Blues master plan has been revealed as Doug Armstrong spoke to the media today, revealing everything about the St. Louis Blues heading into July 1st free agency, including huge updates on Joel Hofer, updates on their defense, and going as far as saying they're going to look at big names in free agency. We're going to break down all this and more, and you're not going to want to miss it later on this episode. But before we get into that, if you haven't hit that sub button yet, we're trying to reach our goal of 17,000 subscribers. So if you're enjoying this daily content on the St. Louis Blues, on the rest of the NHL, whatever team it is, there's no better spot to be than here in Hat Trick HQ. So go down and hit that free subscribe button. But with that, Darius, we got up straight into the first topic today, where we did see a lot coming out. We're going to touch on the defensive side first, where we did see Doug Armstrong say he spoke to Ryan Suter and mentioned to him the 7 defensemen on the Blues already. Sounds like there will not be a reunion unless someone else gets moved. Now, looking at this, we know there's a lot of defensemen on the team. We know there are some injuries, which we will touch on shortly. But what is your thoughts on the loss of what is a key veteran on this team, as it seems like Ryan Suter will be finding a new home next season?
Well, first of all, thank you, St. Louis Blues fans, for your support on this content on the channel. It's been unbelievable, and we're trying our best to give you all the updates on what the St. Louis Blues are doing this offseason, because it's going to be a busy one. And I know the elephant in the room right now, and we'll get to it, is obviously Torrey Krug and his future, and we do have a definitive answer. We'll get to that in a little bit, but Ryan Suter is an interesting one too. Will he return? Won't he return? We've talked about it in previous videos. Sounds like there won't be a reunion. I also saw another report that Ryan Suter would probably retire if he did not return to St. Louis, because he's very particular in terms of fit and how he fits into a culture in the dressing room and obviously an organization, and fit on the ice. So it sounds like he might be done playing in the league if this does not work out. Now, there could be some moves on the way, right? But we don't know for sure. I think that, the Blues are one team in the league that are pretty solidified up and down the lineup. And I think that is a good thing, except for a couple, contracts around the edges. Again, they have to sign a couple guys. They have a couple RFAs, make some decisions. One of them we'll get into later in the episode as well. But with Ryan Suter, I think it's an interesting one. He could end up retiring. And again, I do think that there could be room for a reunion, but a move would have to get made. And I just don't know, looking at that defense, and again, we'll look at the lineup later, but looking at that defense, I don't know if you move anyone at this point.
And I mean, the big thing is, looking at the back end, you have a lot of big names here. I mean, we've seen Broberg come in, take over a top 4 spot. Falk looks like the steal of the century coming in on this team. There's a lot of guys that are going to be here, but we do get a definite answer on Krug, where we did see him say he's not going to play. We've seen Doug Armstrong speak on this towards the end of the season. They said they're going to evaluate him, but we do get clear notes from Doug saying that he's not going to end up playing. So that does clear up quite a bit of room. I mean, right now, $5 million plus the $6.5 you get from Krug. This is the team that will enter free agency with $11 million. Now, we're going to touch on Hofer soon and the comments on that. But what is your thoughts on just opening up that spot? I mean, listen, no one wants to see an injury. Seeing Krug, what looks like could be an end of career injury and ending things for him going forward. But what is your thoughts on the implications where it just opens up that much more room for them to do something?
Well, I do want to say, as we just saw with Jonathan Toews, never say never. It's not looking very likely, but he hasn't officially retired. He's just not playing this season. And again, it opens up a lot of cap space for, you never want to see an injury like that, of course, but he didn't play last season. I think the writing was on the wall. I think most fans and the organization kind of knew that he probably wasn't going to play this upcoming season. But like you said, it frees up a lot of money. It's not pictured here, of course, because it's not added yet and they're not an overage or anything like that. But it does free up a lot of money that they can go out, make some moves this free agency. There's a lot of big names. Obviously, next year, there's way bigger names in free agency if you want to go after those as well in every position. So you can set yourself up with some flexibility to even, depending where you are at the trade deadline, you can, open yourself up to more flexibility, add a piece, right? Trade away a piece. So it could get very interesting. But again, like it doesn't necessarily free up a spot, but does free up a lot of salary cap space. So looks like the defense could be solidified. Maybe I was just looking at it now, maybe Nick Leddy, you figure out something there, because I know a lot of Blues fans are not particularly high on that player, but obviously he could end up returning. But it's going to be very interesting to see what Armstrong ends up doing, because they do have quite a bit of cap space, but I don't think that they want it. Like, they have 11 million in cap space. They have a couple guys they still need to sign. So you're kind of looking at maybe 8 or 9 at this point, maybe a little bit less. And I don't think you want to spend all of that either. I think you want to open yourself up to some flexibility in season and for next year as well, because most of your team is solidified at this point.
And I mean, speaking on the cap space, we do know there's one key guy they do need to sign, and we've seen Doug Armstrong speak on this today as well on Hofer. We're negotiating. We're not going to concerned about that one. He'll get a qualifying offer and he'll take us to arbitration, or we'll take him to arbitration. But all signs are starting to point that he's going to come back. We can see from Anley Strickland. The Blues and Hofer have begun contract negotiations. He wants to stay with the team and wants to keep him. Usually prevent offer sheets from coming into play. We know Doug said he'll match anything. We know a team in particular in the Oilers are looking for a goaltender. We've seen offer sheets last year, which really benefited the Blues, but at least we know Doug Armstrong's not going to let Hofer go to a new team if it's coming down to an offer sheet. We can see from Scotia that he's projected right now in a $3.7 million deal. 3 years, 24 years old, 16 wins last year, 904 save percentage. What is your thoughts and the commitment for Hofer? Because in my opinion, this is a must-sign guy. You get a young goaltender. He's performed well, and it is the perfect that when Jordan Binnington finally hangs him up, I think Hofer can come straight in as the number one, Darius.
Yeah, he's been great. And I think if you look at, contract projections and everything like that, I think the Blues need to have like an internal deadline, first of all, to get this contract done or take him to arbitration and kind of slug it out that way, but also a set amount, right? If he goes above, or it looks like it's going to go above, maybe you look at trading him. But the one thing for me, like you said, he's not the type of player that, if you lose him, the franchise is going to crumble or anything like that. But I think you would really like to sign this player, because if there is an injury to Binnington, let's say, that this is a guy who can come in and give you really good quality starts, quality minutes, right? You have trust in him. I'm a big believer personally in just the sport in general, that everything flows through your goaltender. If you have confidence in your goaltender, your team is going to play well. It's going to play more loose, not as tight, not as stressed, and you're going to find more success that way. So if they can at least solidify, and I keep using that word throughout the episode, but their goaltending as well, then they're in a really, really good spot. You don't have to worry about too much as the season goes on. And of course, you're going to be spending a little bit more on it than maybe other teams will be on their goaltending or their backup goaltending. But I think that's for a good reason. And like you mentioned, if Binnington does go out the door for whatever reason in a couple years, then at least you have this option back there as well. So I do think you have to sign him. I think Blues fans want it to get done, and just make sure your goaltending's in a good spot, right? Don't leave it up to chance for any injuries or anything like that. With these two guys backing up the team between the pipes, I could see them absolutely making the playoffs again next year.
I mean, the big thing is we're seeing teams really lean into the 1A, 1B goaltender. So I do think St. Louis, especially after the year Jordan Binnington had, isn't the perfect opportunity to lock up two goaltenders on this team and have them as a goalie tandem of the future. But what is your guys' thoughts on all this? And we're going to touch right on the forward group now. Now, the big thing is we've seen Doug Armstrong go out and speak on free agency as well. I'm not going to read the full thing, but he said they're not saying they're not going to be active, but he doesn't want to be the team that goes over and overpays for someone or is going out and bargain shopping. He's going to go out and look for people and whatever makes sense for the team. Now we know, Darius, this is a team where seeing rumors really fly around, from Gordon Kyrou getting moved to this team looking at someone like Mitch Marner, but we know they're going to be very active. They have a really young forward group, a forward group that has experience, but they're going to have to look for that number two center in a lot of fans' opinions. Looking at the free agent market, we know there's a lot of guys. John Tavares got lowballed by the Toronto Maple Leafs. Maybe he can be pried out. Granlund's another name that I would think would be a perfect fit. But what is your thoughts on Doug Armstrong going out to just make it very clear that they're not going to overpay for a guy? They know where they stand, but they're still going to be active going into July 1st.
I think they're going to be active, but they're not going to make too many moves. They're going to make quality moves. And again, you're looking at the center position. You do have Thomas, of course. You have Braden Shen. So I think you're okay. We were talking about Granlund in a previous episode. I would love that move for the St. Louis Blues. I think it makes a ton of sense, especially at the projected cap hit and all of that. So that could make a lot of sense as well. But and it would make sense in terms of the cap. You have the cap to do it. But I think what Armstrong's kind of talking about here is what I was alluding to before, keeping yourself kind of open, being flexible as the season goes on, so you can go out and make a move. I mean, if the St. Louis Blues are in a great spot at the trade deadline, maybe there's an injury, because again, anything can happen, and you have even more space because of LTIR, you can go out and make a bit of a splash, maybe go on a run if you want, right? Because anything can happen. You do have trust in Jordan Binnington. They were just, a goal away from making the second round, and then you never know what happens after that, right? So could be a very interesting summer, but I think he's really focusing in on quality moves that aren't going to be anything crazy. I don't think he's going after Mitch Marner or anything like that. He's going to go in, make some quality moves. And again, it really depends at the the position of need and what they need and how he feels like the team is going to progress into the future. And the last thing I'll mention too is I think they're in a position, we've talked about Dvorsky and some of these other guys and that they could take, maybe they take the leap to the NHL. I think they're in a position right now that maybe they should add another guy through free agency or maybe via trade even to fill in those gaps. So then those guys can have one more year at the AHL level, continue their development. And then when they come up, maybe in a year or two's time, they're dominating at the NHL level instead of just, sinking, right? So I think that could be another option as well.
And I mean, Blues fans, what is your thoughts? We know Doug Armstrong has 1 year left until Alex Steen takes over the reins as general manager. What are you hoping he does? Are you hoping he goes out and maybe gets a big fish? Do you think he waits farther in? We've seen him say that he could get a player as far as July 15th, depending on who is there and the value of this player. Let us know your thoughts down below. Is there a free agent you want them to get? Is there a player you want them to draft? If you want us to cover anything on St. Louis, go down and leave a comment on it in the comments below. But that'd be it for this episode. If you enjoyed it, make sure to hit that like, subscribe, share this with your friends. We're so close to 17,000 subscribers. And if you made it this far, go down and hit that free subscribe button. It helps us out a ton. And we love talking about St. Louis. So we'll keep you up to date on everything to do around the Blues. But I've been your host, Mark, with my co-host, Darius, and take care.